edition of Eco Africa, brought to you by DW, Kwese and Channels TV. I'm in Johannesburg and my name is Zihlon Ndlovu. With me is my charming colleague in Nigeria. Hey, Auntie.
Hi, Z, and hello, everybody. I'm Neota Egbe, and greetings from this part of the world. Over the next half hour or thereabout, we will be looking at some interesting stories on the environment from Africa, Europe, and the Atlantic Ocean. We will plumb the depths to research the history of the water. Back on land, we will take a spin on a bike made from bamboo, before switching to an electric taxi in Nairobi, the very first of its kind in the city. We start the show today with the Atlantic, where a research vessel recently made a trip from the far, far south to Germany. It was on a mission to examine the state of the ocean and the effects of climate change. A group of students from around the world took part in that research. Now let's hear their findings.
We are hundreds of kilometers west of the Moroccan coast. 3 weeks ago, this research vessel set sail from the Falkland Islands to Germany. The students and researchers on board want to know just how serious is the state of the oceans, how strong is the impact of climate change. Felaniaina Lantovululana studies aquatic bioscience in Madagascar. It's her first time on a ship like this. She's never done any deep-sea sampling before.
They teach us how to collect sample from the device, but at that time we have no idea how to proceed, like how to deploy it directly, or is there any procedure before deploying it directly into the water. So it was a bit challenging because you have no idea. And at some point people tell you, oh, you have to tell the crew that it's a time to deploy it, like where and then when.
The probe is lowered to 5,000 meters below the surface, where it takes water samples. Cold water sinks to the bottom of the sea and doesn't mix with upper layers anymore. The water that they retrieve from the depths was last exposed to surface weather conditions hundreds of years ago. That makes the samples very valuable for determining whether climate change can already be observed far beneath the surface. In the labs, the students examine the samples for oxygen, microorganisms, and salinity, all values that are influenced by higher temperatures. Over the past 50 years, the ocean has warmed by 0.8 degrees Celsius with no end in sight. Most of the students come from countries where the effects of climate change are already noticeable. Mohamed Ahmed Hussein studies sea and lake science in Belgium. In his homeland Kenya, it's now much too dry in many regions.
So along the coastline, there's a lot of soil erosion. There's also a lot of, people talk of sea level rise. So you have people living close to the sea. So their homes might be inundated, but at the same time, we look at sea surface temperatures. So Kenya is a touristic country whereby people come to see the beautiful corals, and climate change kind of affects coral reefs in terms of bleaching.
The water looks good. Okay, now we can go to position.
The aim is to prepare young people from developing countries for local climate research. The students learn things like how to calculate climate models, how to determine air pollution based on the reflection of the ocean, and how to analyze microplastics. Polar researcher Peter Lemke leads the onboard seminar on climate models. He says industrialized Western countries have a special responsibility for climate protection.
We started causing climate change 150 years ago, and we're still doing it by emitting CO2. And of course we have to do something to prevent that. And that's something that only works when we do it together. Teaching is such a joy because the younger generation has to and wants to know more about this.
Felaniaina from Madagascar says taking part has encouraged her to spread environmental awareness in her home country. She's discovered how much is possible even without big research projects.
Before this trip, this amazing trip, I had no idea that there's open source data and free software that you can use for resource monitoring, for satellite image analysis and everything. So I truly want to share to my compatriots that there's a lot that we can do.
Friendships have formed over the 4 weeks on the ocean. The ship has now reached its destination, Germany. But the students plan to stay in touch with each other when they return home. Mohammed Ahmed Hussein says he'll never forget the experience. He hopes to come back, next time as a climate researcher.
I'll miss the place actually a lot. It has been amazing living on board for 4 weeks, and now it feels like it's already home in a way, and always I'll have a piece of me on the polar stand. As scientists, hopefully we meet again. As we say in my culture, people do meet, it's only mountains that do not meet.
How much do you know about silkworms? They originally come from China and are used to produce silk. Their use has since spread and they are now being bred in Kenya. There, the climate crisis is forcing farmers to find alternatives to food crops. And one of those options is to produce silk.
Silkworms, they love the leaves of mulberry trees, and they are giving hope to farmers in Kenya. Due to the extreme weather patterns of recent years, Newton Owino has turned to silkworm farming.
This is the 26th day, and you can see the silkworm are already spinning. They are making cocoons. In other words, they have already reached the stage that we call pupal stage. Yeah, so as they spin, we harvest our cocoons.
The former senior researcher at the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology started the silkworm venture in 2015.
Whatever is left for us in form of cocoons, we shall subject it to post-harvesting processes. That includes deflation of the cocoon and removing the pupa inside, so that we use the remaining part of it for producing the thread.
Today, Newton Owino owns around 500,000 mulberry trees planted over 5 acres. Many of the farmers in the region are following his example. In a bid to find a profitable crop to sustain their livelihood, they are ditching traditional cash crops such as coffee, maize or sugarcane.
We have been working to develop technologies for the silk so that we can give farmers the seeds and have an appropriate market and regulations for silk. Therefore, we are thinking about having farmers in groups, or what we call in sericulture villages, where they can have a common collection center for the cocoons. And we are linking farmers with the markets.
Kenya's annual silk production amounts to approximately 2 metric tons of dried cocoons, but the potential is far greater. The mulberry trees, whose leaves the worms eat, are drought-tolerant and resistant to the cold. Muo Kasina says the rearing of silkworms for production of raw silk, or sericulture, is becoming increasingly popular as a result.
We have potential for silk in the country, and in countries where it is hugely done, is getting down. The production is lowering. In China, it has more or less completely reduced in Japan. And in India, India is doing well with the silk. So we feel that Kenya can contribute to global silk demand.
Silk is also used in the manufacture of skin products, contact lenses, soaps, and woven organic products. The National Sericulture Research Center is currently offering farmers subsidies, plants, and mulberry cuttings at very subsidized rates. And with the help of international investors, they are also working to train farmers and help them identify markets.
100 years ago, Japan had been the largest silk exporter. And after that, we studied a lot of sericulture and silk. So now we have high technology of silk and the sericulture, but we can't use it because of the Japan is too developed, and also the climate. The climate in the Kenya is much better than Japan to sericulture.
And by adapting to the changing climatic conditions, small-scale silk farmers like Newton or Wino have found a way of sustaining their livelihoods.
We're staying in Kenya, but moving from the countryside to the capital, Nairobi. Public transport there is patchy, the traffic is terrible, and the air is horrible. It's all about the petrol and diesel that's being burned.
Electric vehicles, especially ones powered from renewable sources, would certainly make a difference. Well, Nairobi now has some e-taxis. They're operated by a subsidiary of a Finnish company, EcoRent, and it has been growing its fleet.
You don't see the difference. You only hear it. Or rather, you don't. Kenya's first fully electric car is almost silent. In Africa, they can only operate in cities where there's a reliable electricity supply. Charging takes about 2 hours. And once fully charged, it can travel up to 150 kilometers. The battery can last up to 15 years. A Finnish company launched its e-taxi named Nopea Ride last year in Nairobi. You can hail it with an app. Today, the company has 11 vehicles operating in the Kenyan capital. And as the drivers don't have to pay for gasoline, they charge less for a ride than normal taxis do. It will take many more electric cars to make a difference to the polluted air in Nairobi, but it's a start.
And how about you? If you're also doing your bit, tell us about it. Visit our website or send us a tweet. #DoingYourBit. We share your stories.
Bikes made out of bamboo. Not only do they look great, but they're also eco-friendly. Two young men from Germany decided to bring the idea from Africa and sell the bikes in their home country with growing success. We went to meet the entrepreneurs in northern Germany.
Kiel in northern Germany is a city of boats and bikes. But even here, the two bikes ridden by Maximilian Schei and Jonas Stolzke stand out from the rest. Their frames are made of bamboo.
People always ask, does it hold up?
And many people knock on it.
Right, and then they'll knock on it to see if it really is bamboo or just painted metal. Those are the top two reactions when people see these bikes.
The two men discovered bamboo in 2012. As students, they launched their My Boo company. Their idea, to help produce sustainable bikes in Ghana and sell them in Europe. The finishing touches are made in Germany. They say bamboo is ideal for bicycles.
Bamboo is a long-grained grass, unlike other materials normally used for bicycles. The long grain allows for a tougher exterior but low weight and very high flexibility. Construction scaffolding in Asia, for instance, can be very high and flexible in the wind, yet it's extremely stable. That's why it's used for scaffolding in Asia and for bicycle frames at our company.
The men from Kiel work with a local project in Ghana, helping to set up a bicycle frame factory. Bamboo is a commonly used material in the region. It's ready for harvest in just 3 years. About 80 man-hours go into making each frame. More than 40 jobs were created. The profits go to finance building a new school.
Our idea was not to have our own production in Ghana, but to work with a great partner there on an equal footing. They take the production into their own hands with a raw material that grows there, and they know the local people, culture, and customs. We finish and market the product in Europe.
They're not the only ones making bicycles from natural materials. The tubes for this bicycle's frame are made of flax fiber. Various manufacturers are also making bikes out of wood. Tobias Rudolph builds bicycles from natural products in Berlin. Many hours of work go into each bike. Even so, he doesn't see these materials as real competition for metal.
As long as natural materials involve lots of manual labor, they have no chance. You'll never reach a price where the general public says, yes, I want that bicycle.
The bamboo bicycles by Maibu cost from 1,500 to 4,500 euros. Many buyers use them as alternatives to their cars.
I know the bicycles have their price, but once I realized I'd be supporting a social and sustainable product, the bike was worth every cent to me.
But are bamboo bikes really eco-friendly? After all, the frames are shipped to Germany all the way from Ghana.
For sustainability, three components are essential to us. There's the environmental aspect, of course, but just as important is the social and the economic sustainability.
It's a great compromise to say it's a step in the right direction. Our social commitment is 100%, and ecologically, ours are a cut above any other bicycle.
Bicycles made of natural materials are both attractive and sustainable.
Green spaces are rare in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa. But the Zoma Museum, an exhibition space and garden, which opened earlier this year, is a green haven in the middle of town. It is designed to promote links between art, architecture and the environment. Let's take a look.
The rainy season has started and the Zoma garden is rejoicing. This lush oasis is the newest addition to Addis Ababa's cultural spaces, and the creation of Meskrem and her friend Elias. Here, architecture and nature are celebrated together. These ecological huts, turned into works of art, were built using an ancient construction technique.
It's a process where you actually get the subsoil. You have to dig about half a meter before you get the soil. The only thing you add is water and straw for about a month, and it lasts for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's thermal control, so in so many ways it's one of the best, I think.
Sustainable houses surrounded by a labyrinth of plants, most of which are endemic. A dream come true for Meskrem.
The ginger is underneath, but this is what it looks like.
Tenadam is often dipped into coffee. And this plant has strong medicinal virtues. In a city where concrete high-rises are growing like mushrooms, the Zoma Museum is a space for humans to breathe and for nature to grow.
The city is growing fast, I think, not in the right direction. Many of the trees are really dying out. You know, if the air is polluted or even completely poisoned, we're all affected. One way or another, we're all connected through the environment.
Reconnecting humans to the environment is precisely the aim of the Zoma School. Several times a week, these young children come in small groups and take care of the Zoma garden and its farm. The school is open to all, but only the most privileged can afford the fees.
The students, when this age, they have to learn about the gardens, especially about the foods. It's organic. They can't touch, they can't see, and they can't even taste it. So they know about where it comes from until it's getting to the foods.
Despite these multiple facets, the Zoma Museum has not said its last word yet. More than 40 bridges are waiting for international artists to transform them into works of art. After his recent visit, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed asked for the garden to be extended, an encouraging show of political support for the project only a couple months after its grand opening.
Zimbabwe's changing climate means that farmers are being forced to look for new ways to make a living. Some have now started to breed free-range chickens. Why is that, NT?
Well, these animals are nature's pest controllers. They feed on insects and food waste. Now, a national organization is encouraging more farmers to take up the chicken breeding. We went to meet some families who are doing just that to find out why and how they are getting on.
There's no guarantee that Sinikiwe Dube's fields will produce enough for her to eat. Here in northwestern Zimbabwe, farmers are already feeling the effects of climate change.
Things aren't like they were in previous years. The weather is different now. For one thing, we used to get rain from October to December, but now we get little to none. In the past, there was enough rain for our crops and cattle, but that's all changed.
To make sure she'll have enough to eat in future, Sinikiwe Dube has bought some hens. She feeds them kitchen waste. But because they can run about freely, they can also forage for food. About an hour's drive south, close to the city of Bulawayo, free-range hens are being bred commercially. Their meat has become trendy in restaurants in Zimbabwe's towns and cities. It's said to be tastier than the meat of battery-reared hens. Komborere Mahaka used to be a vegetable farmer. Then she decided to take on free-range hens as well. Today, an expert on free-range breeding has come to give her tips on getting even more out of her farm. The Kukuk breed is good for both eggs and meat production, so it's very popular among breeders. But it's important not to rely on just one breed.
The Zimbabwe Free Range Poultry Association is promoting different breeds for free-range poultry production. There is a market for the indigenous birds that you find in the rural areas, and we want to protect that genetic pool so that farmers continue to produce that and protect it.
The eggs here don't go to market. There's a more lucrative use for them. They're being incubated at just under 38 degrees Celsius for 3 weeks. The chicks are sold for €1 apiece to farmers who want to start their own free-range operations. Sales here come to about €1,000 a month. But nonetheless, energy costs are so high that Mhaka is planning to switch to solar power.
Electricity is quite a major blow to our business because we use electricity 24/7. Our hatcheries, they have to be on throughout. So we sourced a generator. So that's the backup that we have. But now with the increase of fuel, we found out it's now very expensive to run a generator for 8 to 10 hours.
Energy may be costly, but waste from the fields is free. It's used to feed the hens. Their droppings are used to fertilize the fields. This is organic cultivation, and the farm is already supplying 3 supermarkets with vegetables. Beauty Gigi spends much time traveling throughout Zimbabwe. Her efforts are paying off. Some 5,000 farmers have already joined the Zimbabwe Free Range Poultry Association. But she wants to recruit more of them, and for that she's prepared a workshop. In a clear and simple way, Beauty Gigi shows villagers the environmental and financial benefits of raising different breeds on a large scale.
Anyone and any farmer can start that enterprise with whatever breed or birds that they had. Secondly, it's a low investment enterprise. It doesn't need complicated housing. It doesn't need complicated breeds or feed. You could use the local available materials.
The farmers tend to be cautious. Even if the hens do generate cash, they want to keep the costs down. Earthworms are one type of fodder that comes for free, and raising them in a mash of kitchen waste, cattle dung and moisture means they can reproduce easily.
Perhaps a lack of awareness of these programs is why interest among my peers is low. Many would rather leave to seek employment elsewhere than take part in the project. I'll do my best to convince them it's worthwhile to get involved. It's a chance to develop a meaningful livelihood. Jobs are hard to come by nowadays.
Then at sundown, something odd happens. Something that never ceases to amuse the villagers. Their free-range hens all take to the trees to settle down for their night's rest. This has a beneficial side effect. The trees in which the hens sleep are valued by the villagers and are therefore rarely cut down.
And that's it for today. Thank you for watching. You can always find out more and visit us on our social media platforms. Goodbye from me.
And from me in Johannesburg. We hope we've given you some food for thought. Do tune in again next week for a brand new episode of Eco Africa. Bye for now.